But we're not done yet with the 2020 conference. We now have with us Lawrence Tabas. And Lawrence is the chairman of the Republican State Party of Pennsylvania. And this is a particularly good time to have Lawrence as state chairman because he is one of the foremost experts in election law in Pennsylvania and served for many years as general counsel of the Republican State Party. And as we've already heard, and we're going to hear Lawrence discuss in our panel afterward, we're very concerned about election security, ballot security, as well as the need to carry Pennsylvania and once again put our electoral votes in the column for Donald Trump. So with that, please welcome to the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference, Lawrence Tabas.
Thank you very much, Loman. It is a privilege to be here in this virtual world that we've been living in for the last 7 months or so, and I look forward to next year when we can see each other in 3D. So to frame my remarks today, I want to tell you a little bit about what is probably the most important thing that I can do as the chairman of the state party. And if I don't do this right, there's nothing that I can do that will make up for it. And what is that? It's to deliver and make sure there are enough lawn signs available to distribute all throughout the state. That's right. In the digital world in which we live now, it's the lawn sign that is the most important commodity, but also, as you will see, the focal point of a true message. So the digital world that we live in has been made even more so by COVID. The stay-at-home, the virtual meetings, the remote working from home. The digital has been the tool that the media has used and others to dominate the narrative and the story of political campaigns and public policy. The media has become effectively an advocacy group, not a neutral reporter of facts, but an advocacy entity seeking to push the radical left theme. They've pounded the Republican voters, the conservatives. There's not really new reporting. It's advocacy, as I say. And the media, perhaps in coordination with candidates, donors, and others, have been using and pressing this message and shutting out any other views, ignoring the views of millions of Americans, telling Americans what they need to think, why they have to believe the way they do, how they're supposed to feel about themselves, how they raise their children. We see it not only in the schools, but now we see it in the business world, who have adopted this theme as well, maybe as a means of self-preservation. It's George Orwell's 1984, but 36 years later. Then on top of that, you have the independent expenditures that are coming into Pennsylvania from Soros, from NextGen, and others who fund TV, mail against our candidates in support of this message that the media carries and dominates as well, part of the Democratic radical left strategy. And they're not just putting that money into the presidential campaign or congressional races. They're going as far down as local races. George Soros's group contributed to a candidate for district attorney in Delaware County last year, and for candidates for township office. They are trying to build a network of their view of America. It is not our view. What has happened is that the establishment has abandoned many of the positions and values that millions of Americans have accepted and believed in and fought for years. And then in 2016, Donald Trump came along. He offered a platform of populism, pro-growth, conservative policies to bring America back and make it great again. He listened to the Americans who were not being heard. And suddenly, an organic wave began to rise. The voices of the citizens whose views were no longer being heard, they began to act. And they acted and began at the very lowest grassroots level. And I mean exactly where the grass starts to grow. In April of 16, I started to get phone calls from county chairs, volunteers, workers, candidates, not coordinated, not organized. Where can we get lawn signs? We need to put our message out. How do we get Trump lawn signs? Where are they available? And when they could not find them, they made their own. They went out and got them. It's not like they all sat around the table and discussed this strategy. It was not a top-down strategy. It didn't come from the campaign. It didn't even come from the state party. It came from the grassroots, finally saying it is time for our message to come up. And steadily, thousands of Pennsylvanians got up off the sofa, did something. The lawn sign, which has become the secret handshake of millions of Americans, turning against the radical left policies, turning against the media and others who preach a doctrine and policy that's not theirs and won't let them respond. Right now, how do we keep Pennsylvania red? As Lohman said, there have been a lot of changes in the laws. I will first tell you that I absolutely believe that the president will win Pennsylvania this year. We will win the state legislative races to keep our majorities. I think we'll pick up at least maybe potentially 3 congressional seats, and we're going to win at the statewide office level. We'll be operating under many new rules this year, some of which were just created by the state Supreme Court. Mail-in voting, new deadlines, new places to cast the ballots, and no more straight party voting. But what have we done? We have spent at the state party over $4.8 million in mail to date on our state and federal candidates. We'll be spending a lot more too. We've done local TV for our statewide candidates. We're meeting with groups to do the local rallies and the groups that come together of grassroots volunteers. Because again, in this digital world where everything seems to be on Facebook or Instagram or Google, is losing the message to the lawn sign. The symbol of the voters in this country saying that our conservative message will come out, and you have to be able to listen to us. You can't underestimate the enthusiasm factor that we have. Our voters are voting for something. They are voting because they believe and have confidence in our candidates. The Democrats are voting out of hate. They're voting against the president, against Republican conservative philosophy. They're not voting for anything. We've had individuals who have also taken action on their own. The lawsuit that was brought with Butler County and several others to challenge Governor Wolf's business shutdown. And in fact, the gift that keeps on giving is King Tom Wolf. He chooses winners and losers. With his secret waiver panels and sudden decrees and threats, he has shown Pennsylvanians that he's not listening to them either. And then finally, our legislature. They stood up. Every time our legislature these last 7 months started to move legislation forward, to reopen Pennsylvania, to put into place health measures that would protect us, but also restore the economy, because COVID is both a health crisis and an economic crisis. Every time they stood up, while he may have vetoed their bills, he backed off a little bit more. So the conservative message is alive and breaking through. And it is that simple lawn sign that you see popping up all over the state. I've traveled everywhere. I've been on the road since last Friday. At 8 a.m. I left. Took me up to Erie, the western part of the state, all over. The signs are everywhere. They're the symbol of this message breaking through in this world. Now, as to the election itself and some of these measures, mail-in voting, it's not popular amongst the Republicans. And I see that. But we have to understand that there are 2 legal methods to vote in Pennsylvania. Bipartisan majority passed it in October. We must not allow our voices not to be heard at the ballot box, wherever that is. And I assure you that we can win this and will win this election by the popular vote. When it is all counted and done, our candidates and the president will win. But it is important that all of us understand and recognize that these next 40 days, there will be major efforts still made to kind of demonize the president, demonize our message and our beliefs. The Republican Party in this state is proud also to offer and have 3 outstanding statewide candidates. You heard from 2 of them, and I think you're going to hear from the 3rd if you haven't already. We have 3 candidates who will be the watchdogs because Governor Wolf will still be in office for 2 more years after this November. Heather Heidelbaugh, you heard how tough and professional she is. She will be a true Attorney General. Tim DeFore will be the Auditor General who will actually audit. Jean D. Pasquale, after promising to audit the nursing home situation in April, only woke up to say he might start it a couple of weeks ago. Tim DeFore will do that day 1. And Stacey Garrity, the candidate for treasurer, she will be watching every single penny that gets spent. And some of those that she should look at is, look what happened in Philadelphia, Center County, and Dauphin County, and maybe other places. Some nonprofit groups have been giving grants to county governments to give them money to use as part of the election process. County government, like all government, answers to the taxpayer. The taxpayer funds government. That's the oversight. That's the check and balance. But if nonprofits that are controlled by who knows whom are giving the money to the government doesn't necessarily have to answer to us as taxpayers anymore because they've got the funding now to do activities that are theirs. We have to be careful and be watching out for that. Right now, the election process is the way for all citizens to come forward and cast their ballots and show their votes. Will Pennsylvania stay red? Absolutely. Will we win throughout the state better than we did in 2016? Clearly we will. I'll go out on a limb and predict that the president will win our state by over 100,000 votes. But again, because we do not have straight party ticketing, I encourage everybody to make sure that they go through the whole ballot and support our candidates. We need people at every level of government to protect us. And if we've seen anything these last months, in COVID, it's even more important that we do so. Rest assured that we have teams ready, volunteers on the ground, people who are enthusiastic. We'll be doing that grassroots activity. Again, in this world, grassroots still is the key to victory. We learned that in 2016. To the extent people don't pay attention to that, they're not going to be the ones who are victorious. I thank PLC, I thank Loman Henry, who's always done a phenomenal job at organizing this event, for the opportunity not only for me to speak, but to hear all of these other wonderful speakers these last couple of days. This is really a chance for those of us who I believe are part of that secret handshake of the lawn sign to get together and recognize that we're not alone and that the conservative message is alive and will continue. Thank you for having me today.